All right, I'm Bradley Thomas, and this is The Art of Changing Your Life, and welcome to the Take the Road to Freedom Summit. And today, my guest is Dinah Snow, and she's been dubbed the Soul Translator and the Pint-Sized Powerhouse. I like small people because I'm one of those small people, too. And the powerhouse with a holy voice. She's an award-winning, mastery-level certified coach, singer, speaker, and leader and president of the International Coach Federation in Colorado. Welcome, Dinah. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I hope I got all that out. That's all. That's a mouthful. You've got quite a good history and a lot to share about helping people find their purpose, and that's exactly why I'm doing this. I really believe that once you know your purpose and know what drives you from inside and how every decision is made, what's going on in your head, you can go a lot further and faster, make more money, be happier in life in general. So if we wanted to jump right in, why don't you share with the audience a little bit about your background, about coaching and how you got into it and how you found your purpose.
That's a lot of questions in one, so let me peel that back a little bit.
Feel free to break those up.
So I went through coach training in 2002 with CTI, and at the time I was working as a recreation therapist, so my background is not in business and marketing. My background is in human services, and so I think that in and of itself, I want to talk about a little bit more later, where people have some difficulty in, if they're going to be running a business or finding their purpose and monetizing it. There's a lot to be learned when you're not coming from a business or marketing background. And part of my story has everything to do with finding my sea legs around that. But anyway, I started out as a vocal coach. And when I got teaching people how to sing and own their power on stage, and then once I got the life coach training, I started weaving that piece into it as well. And what happened for me is what I think happens for a lot of people, not coming from that business and marketing background, is that after an initial great start in my business, just because everybody was excited for me, my family and friends, after that initial excitement wore off, then it was like, oh gosh, how do I get more clients and how do I go bigger with this and all that?
Yeah.
And so it actually took me a really long time to figure that out, and I kind of let it fall by the wayside. I treated it like a hobby, all those things that a lot of other people do. But it wasn't until I shifted my mindset from being that, like, it's okay for it to just kind of be something on the side, and it got really clear that no, this is something that is important to me as a human being and to my personal evolution. It's like, I need to make this work so that I feel like I'm doing what I'm here on the planet to do.
Yeah.
And so that was like my big mindset shift around that. And what else did you ask me, Bradley?
If you could describe what your purpose is right now, to people so they know what that is.
My purpose, what really seems to have stayed with me over many, many years, is that I am here to ensure that women's voices in particular are heard and their worth is honored. And I think in the context of what you want to talk about today, what we are talking about today is finding your purpose. I believe that you don't decide what your purpose is. Like, it finds you. Your purpose finds you, and you can find all sorts of seeds of evidence, if you will. If you look back on your life, there's little signs, little pieces along the way that, taken in their entirety, can guide you forward if you stop denying it. is what my experience was. When I stopped denying what my purpose was, it was like, okay, everything started lining up for me. And I think we do tend to deny downplay it, or uh, treat it like, really, am I too big for my britches to be thinking that that's really what I'm here to do?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we find all sorts of ways to downplay it, or not give ourselves permission to live into it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why people, I mean, you could spend hours talking about why someone doesn't know their purpose. It could be things that happened in their past that have created blocks in them, and they don't want to open up because they're scared to do something like that.
Yeah.
And I was just working with a client last night, and I don't know, we haven't got to the point yet where we know where this block is, but she's fearful to take a step in the direction that she wants to go. And we'll figure it out where that fear is coming from, but just having that recognized now for her is a big step. Like, oh, she's fearful to do everything, and that's why she doesn't want to take a step towards going towards her purpose and finding what really lights her up. And it is a whole process of actually going through that and helping people during that process. Is there, what are some ways people can listen if they don't have a coach, and they're, this is why I'm doing this, is so if they don't have a coach and they want to start finding their their purpose, what are some ways they can listen, or maybe some questions they can ask themselves, or actions, or what how do you help your clients find their purpose?
Yeah. I actually use a body of work. I use numerology as one of the tools that I use to help people discover and own what their purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, it's my belief that the pain that we've experienced in life is truly the fuel that moves us forward, and coupled with the gifts that we bring in, together are the foundation, or the awareness, at least the beginning of what your purpose is. So if I share my own examples from my own life,
yeah, please.
Not that we're gonna rehash childhood or anything, but a lot of a lot of what we bring forward into adulthood comes from our early imprinting.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes that thing that we wish we had in our moment of deepest pain is what we are here to provide to other people. And so one of the messages that was imprinted in me when I was a kid was, stop whining. That was one of my biggest childhood memories. And even though my parents were great, I love my parents, they're awesome. But that was one of the things that I took in and made mean so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I let that shut my voice down. So now, as an adult, and everything I've done throughout my life until now, I'm 50 years old, has had some element of that getting expressed in my work, empowering others, making sure they're heard, vocal coaching. But I wasn't able to identify it until recently, that that's what it is. But then the gifts that we come in with too, one of my gifts is the gift of being able to sing, and my gift of being intuitive and being able to see right into something. Those are what we're meant to use as the vehicle to help other people heal that pain. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And I like how you framed that, because sometimes you can listen for things and you might see some of the patterns, but sometimes it really is the combination of something that happened in your life, maybe a tragedy or whatever it is, and then coupling that, like you said, with your gifts and seeing how you can meld those two together to actually create maybe a business, or just to really fuel your purpose and make it all kind of click for you. Because the more times I do these interviews, I'm finding that it's people's past experiences, something that happened, either tragedy or something they went through because they made a series of mistakes, or maybe it was a mistake after all, but it was just a series that you went through that led you to realize, oh wow, this is what exactly, this all happened for the reason so I can show up here. And it's once you were able to listen and grab onto it and like, oh wow, this is my ticket, this is where I'm supposed to go. Any particular questions people can ask themselves to help kind of start bring those together, or maybe see that thread in their life that's helpful?
Well, I like to ask the $5 million question. And the $5 million question goes something like this. If the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, came to you one day and says, here's $5 million, and you've taken your dream vacation, you've got a great relationship, everything in your life is working, but the universe also says you can only keep it and use it if you use it to move your purpose in life forward, to do more of your purpose. What would you do? And that question right there gets people going, boy, if money weren't an object, if location wasn't an object, what would I be doing? They know what it is. They already have the sense, but they haven't given themselves permission to milk the dream.
Yeah.
Or the messages from the world are saying, but you can't make a good living doing that, or all those things. But truly, when people embrace their purpose, what that joy is for themselves, the doors do open. They really do. And we can't always know, we can't predict what it's all going to look like, but we know that I know, and my clients know, that when they take steps in that direction, opportunities open up that they couldn't have imagined.
Yeah. I really like, I've never heard that I've heard a question similar to that, but the way that that's framed is different, and I like it because you take out that if money wasn't an object, because whenever people hear those types of questions, usually the answer is, I buy a big house, nice car, and travel a lot, and then, then what? Then what are you supposed to do? I mean, you could do all that with it, and you could buy a house online. I mean, you could do it all within a week, and then what are you supposed to do with the rest of your life,
Right.
And my story is similar to that. Is that I climbed the corporate ladder, made good money, and I bought my dream house, had a nice car, and all the crap to go with it. And I'm standing in this house, and I'm like, this really isn't what I want. Like, it's not making me happy. Like, what am I supposed to do? And by doing, I wish. Well, no, I don't wish that I would have come to it sooner, because I think it's just naturally happened. So yeah, I think that's a way for people to listen to it better. And that question really frames it, and kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting such a good question. Well, I was, but I mean, I think you know what I mean. Like, trying to do the interview and think at the same time. Like, when something throws you off, it throws you off your interview game, and things happen. So yeah, so I like that question. I'm going to use that. So now you found, you've worked through that. How did you start transitioning? Because you said you were a vocal coach before, and then you kind of got into, coaching. How did you get into the actual, some people call it life coaching, freedom coaching, different, how did you get into that?
Yeah, mine kind of morphed along the way. It's I went from public speaking coaching, weaving in some of the life coaching, and then years later, when I actually started taking it seriously and got help and really learned how to value myself and create packages and programs, I started out doing public speaking coaching. And then the public speaking coaching morphed into more of the business coaching, because if you're going to speak, you need to have your back end in good shape so that your speaking pays off and is worthwhile.
Yeah.
And so it just morphed over time, and now it's morphing again. Um, and part of the public speaking and then the business coaching that morphed into you have to value yourself. So there's some money coaching involved in there and money mindset around that. And now it's coming kind of full circle back to owning the power of your voice again. And one of the shifts that happened for me that I'd love to share with you. Last summer, I got to one of those wall places again in my business and my personal life where things were not moving, and I was outwardly doing all the right things, but I wasn't getting the results. And I had a session with a really incredible intuitive coach who also does numerology, and it kind of turned me on to this whole idea of numerology and using my intuition more. But after the session with her, she's like, "No wonder, honey, you're off the path." So no wonder you're hitting these roadblocks, because you kind of got a little sidetracked there. So again, it's like, okay, I'm supposed to be working with people around owning the power of their voice, their soul truth, so they can navigate life from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm supposed to be using my gift of singing, and I sing professionally in my church and at weddings and funerals and stuff, but a whole nother image started coming into my mind that I could not have predicted. That's what I'm talking about. When you start to stop denying the bigness of what you're really here for, and you start opening up to it, visions and dreams start to come to you. And I kept seeing myself singing in front of big audiences, doing these opening invocations or closing where I'm setting the whole context or the tone of the event. And so I just, with that, literally, it was a vision I couldn't get out of my head. And I was working with my mentor at the time, Kendall Summerhawk, and I was at a retreat with her, a small group retreat, and I said, it's okay if I sing in front of you guys, and I just feel like I need to sing. So I did, and at the end of the song, it was just an a cappella Native American chant. At the end of the song, they're all crying, and next day she's asking me to sing to open at her 3-day event. So it was like, okay, there's the evidence. Opportunities knock when you can't see them for yourself, when you start just taking steps into it. And now I'm doing more of that.
Yeah, I think it's, if you pay attention to the little wins, and you can start to use those little wins. For example, last week I went to my first Toastmasters, and if anybody doesn't know what Toastmasters is, it's an organization where you learn to do public speaking in a safe environment, and it's very encouraging. And it was my first one just to kind of check out the chapter and see if it was something that resonated with me. And I went ahead and went, and actually ended up winning a little mini award for best table topic speech or something like that. So awesome. I was like, well, this is like, yeah, thank you. And I was like, this is a little sign that I just need to kind of put, and remember that, okay, so something's going to come in alignment with this, that, keep this on the path that you need to do to be more successful and be more present and be on purpose. And one of my other things is that I've always been goofy and funny, and just, you can tell, but that's part of my purpose too, is that I'm somehow going to interweave Tony Robbins and Jim Carrey, and that will be me. I'm not sure how that's going to happen yet, but however it's going to do, it's probably going to involve public speaking, making people laugh, and inspiring them to find their purpose and do what they really want in their life, so they can go out and make money doing what they love. Mm-hmm. So kind of speaking of that, I mean, you transitioned a little bit, and you had that shift last year, but I kind of want to bring the full aspect of business, not the full aspect, geez, but how did you start doing that shift when in coaching, and what are some things, and some failures and successes that you learned along the way once you decided, okay, I'm going to do this as a business. This is going to be a business venture.
Yeah. I've got a thought in my head I want to capture before it goes away about
Okay.
your last question, and then I'll come back to that.
No, fine.
So one of the other cues to look for
Hmm.
your purpose is pay attention to what raises your energy. I mean, my gosh, that's where if you've got juice around something, that's one of those signs. If you're trying to do stuff that doesn't jazz you or doesn't make you feel good or energized, don't do it. So so pay attention to where you feel the excitement or the butterflies in your stomach when you think about something. Like when I thought about singing on stage, it was like that wasn't like I'm uber confident and can do it anytime, anywhere. It scared me, but it had that excitement feeling and the butterflies of, ooh, that raises my energy. So that's another
Yeah.
one of those signs I wanted to capture. Um, and coming back to what you said, some of the successes and the failures along the way for me, um, there were a lot of failures up until about 5 or 6 years ago. I'd say most of it was failures up until 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, I had the initial startup, woo-ha, that I did pretty well at the very beginning back in 2001, 2002. But like I said, I got sidetracked, didn't know how to market, didn't know how to value my services, and I kind of made it okay. In my mind, I justified that it was okay that it was going that way.
Yeah.
Um, but then I had that wake up moment where it's like, no, it's not okay. This is part of what I'm on the planet to do, and making that decision. And some of the decisions that I made, like you got to get help. If you're struggling with getting clients or struggling with finding your purpose, you can't figure it out up here. It's so helpful and accelerates things when you go out and get some professional help. Which
Yeah.
so I did that, and I learned how to package up what I do. I learned how to price it. I learned how to talk about it in a way that my ideal clients could resonate with. Um, and so very quickly after that initial getting help, I started making progress, really quickly. And probably like you, every time I got new help or a different kind of help, I always got a massive return on investment. So for me, one of my mindsets is anytime I decide to get help, I take on the mindset that I want to have it pay for itself within a certain amount of time, and I want to have it like uh, exponentially increase.
Hmm.
So that's what I think about when I invest. Um, so successes along the way, we're learning how to do that, how to package up. How do you? Because so many people who are coaches or um, and I'm not sure who all your people are that you love to work with, but even if you are someone who's finding your purpose and you're wanting to find a great job, you still have to do that personal inventory of what you're bringing to the table in the world, and how do you value that and have conversations that um, move you forward, going for what you want, right?
Yeah, 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 definitely. In fact, I've got a friend who didn't get into, dental school, and I'm excited to, help him out and figure out, okay, so you didn't get into that school. Where do you want to go? Is it something you still really want, or is that a sign that it just kind of helping him steer along the way is really cool and
Mm-hmm.
helping. And it's not always about a lot of this for myself is helping other people, and they want to find their purpose so they go out and be an entrepreneur, be their own boss, and have the freedom to go to places like this and do whatever you really want. You're just your own boss. But some people just aren't that, and that's totally fine. That's just they're not an entrepreneur. They don't want that, but they still don't feel on purpose. And there's ways to feel on purpose. And still have a job that makes you feel good about going in every day. And once you know that, it makes going to your job every day a lot easier. And sometimes it's just a reframing of how
Yes.
you think about your job.
Yes. Yes. And one of my clients that I'm working with right now, she's massive background in coaching efficacy and masters and corporate and HR. And after doing a day with me and looking at her numerology, her numbers, her purpose, she's like, oh my gosh, I can still operate at that high level, but now I want to target what I'm doing at a particular audience. And her audience is international nonprofits that are seeking to uplift the human condition. So it's like, oh, now that's a much more expansive expression of her purpose rather than, the corporate grind. Now she's taking it and aligning it with her heart and with her soul and using it in arenas where she's going to get to shine and do her best work.
Yeah, I think that makes if you can get something out of this interview and the other interviews that I've done and help you find that, I mean, it's all worth it to me, because when you're more on purpose and doing the work that you love, it just really expands, and everybody else around you, sees it, feels it, wants to. It's more attractive. I mean, it has every other aspect of your life really just starts to roll forward instead of backward, if you will. So
I think of it like taking a stand, Bradley. I talk about this quite a bit. It's like when you think about what you're a stand for, no matter what, or what you're willing to go to bat for, what you are willing to give up nights and weekends for occasionally. I'm not a big advocate of giving up too much of your personal time, but it's like, think of those things that you really have strong feelings about, and that when you take a stand for something, like my stand is my passion, that women's voices are heard and their worth is honored. And when I share that and I speak from that, it magnetizes people to that same message, and it makes it so that it's much easier for me to talk about it and not be tongue-tied and not be second-guessing, all of that stuff. And it comes from baby steps. So, there's maybe a rare handful of people out there that know what their purpose is when they're, young, like super young in childhood.
Yeah.
But for the most of the rest of us, we have to kind of figure it out. And I'm sure you share this with your people. You can't figure it out standing still. You have to be moving. You have to be taking some kind of action, and in the action, then you can true the course along the way.
Yeah, I think one thing that came up for me when you're saying that is that how I came to one of the bigger milestones for me to find my purpose was a moment when I was kind of pissed off and angry, and I was rehabbing my mother's house, and she wouldn't try something. I wasn't having her do a bunch of construction work, but I was having her help me out in some area, and she just didn't want to try, and it really kind of fired me up, and I was like, why don't you want to try? And that's a moment, and once I really thought about that, I was like, I really like helping and inspiring people to push themselves forward. And the best way to do that now that I've learned is, once you find your purpose, you're willing to try a lot more stuff, and do a lot of things once you know that. But I think if people listen to what makes them angry or what makes them cry, those sometimes are moments when your purpose is really there, because it's that whatever's making you angry is against, is kind of fighting your purpose, and that's the conflict. So if you can listen for that, I think sometimes and extract what's going on underneath, you have another thread to getting towards your purpose. Is that something you found, with your clients as well?
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's a misconception out there too, that when you find your purpose, that everything's gonna fall into place like effortlessly. And I'm still waiting for that.
Let me know if that happens.
So Uh, so while things don't while finding your purpose doesn't necessarily mean that everything will flow easily, it does represent that you will feel a sense of alignment, and you'll be more willing to do things that are outside of your comfort zone in service of you moving toward that which you say you want, toward that which you see in front of you. So it bolsters this this whole notion that you're talking about helping people move through whatever that resistance is. The more on purpose they are, the more willing they will be to move through resistance.
Yeah, it was for one of the threads in my life, to give example to people, is that I was always trying to help people in conversations and at parties and stuff like that, and someone would come up and they would be like, I can never run a half marathon, or I can never do that, and I'm like, well, not with that attitude, and that would kind of fuel me, and it would never go anywhere. I didn't really help them. I maybe pointed out that they had a bad attitude about it, but it wasn't a way to frame and actually help them to get to where they wanted to go. And now that I've gone through the coaching certification and really dug deep, now I know that that's not the best way to do it, but that was a thread within me. And another piece of advice for people is that, what's the advice you're always giving people? That this comes out of your mouth naturally, like, you should do this, and you should do this, and you should do that, and I could help you fix this and this and this. Those types of things seems to align with your purpose as well. And that's what I was doing. I was trying to give people advice to better their attitude, so they can go out and try things and be more happy or happier. Grammar is not my purpose. I'll tell you that. Yeah, so that's just another question. Is that something you've also found helpful, when working with your clients?
Is what something I found helpful?
Sorry. If they're looking, when they're giving advice to people, is that a good question that like another thread?
Well, I would frame it differently, Bradley. I would offer to the listeners today that to think about what people come to you for. Mm. So it's a slightly different shift than what you just said about what kind of advice are you giving. What do you find people come to you for as another place to look for clues? People, if I look back on my whole professional life, people would oftentimes come to me in a really confidential way and want my opinion about big decisions. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, that's interesting. And so that's another place for me to look, that yes, people value my insight or my way of looking at things as one of the places to look, a piece of your gift. I want to say too, when you're on purpose, that whole idea that it's not necessarily going to make everything flow easily, mm-hmm. I wanted to share with people a very personal experience of mine, because and it's not an easy one. It was a very tough decision, but what fed the decision was my sense of purpose, and was I going to be able to fulfill my purpose in that situation. And so this last year, I made the decision to get a divorce. So and that's a pretty darn big decision. Yeah. So when things are not in alignment, when you are clear about what you are here to do, and you're really committed to it, it calls into question those people, places, things that are out of alignment with it or not in support of it. And sometimes you have to make some pretty tough choices. And I think you moved, didn't you, Bradley?
Yeah, I moved. I moved back from Austin, Texas, and beginning in 2014, I moved in with my mother to rehab her house. I've since moved out after I rehabbed it, but that was a big move, moving from your dream house to back to your mother's house, you know, sleeping on the floor. But it was my purpose at that point, and I felt so strongly that I wanted her to have a good home. As she, you know, she just turned 70 last year. Well, she just turned 71 last week. But my purpose was so strong that I wanted her to have a good place to live as she aged. That, you know, it made everything else clear. Okay, I'm just gonna go help make sure she's okay, and then I'm gonna go figure out how I can build a business, make it my purpose. So yeah, but yeah, go ahead with your story.
But to the point, you made some really big decisions. You picked up and moved. You changed your whole living situation. I made the decision to divorce, and even though that was a very difficult decision and a good decision, very freeing in many ways, but it's also difficult. You know, nobody goes through that with flying colors. But what happened for me, almost the moment I made the decision, my business turned around like night and day. Not that it was in the pits or anything, but it went to a whole nother level. And so the point being, not that everyone's following their purpose is going to look like that. However, when you are true to your purpose, it will call you, it will stretch you to do things you didn't imagine or didn't think was possible. And to really take that on as this is what human evolution is about. We're not here to just breathe air, eat food, drink water, and then die and decompose and do, you know, we are here to evolve. That is my belief, that we are here on purpose. And the more we take that on, evolution, oh, I love Barbara Marx Hubbard. She has this way of saying conscious evolution. As humans, we have the choice to consciously evolve, whereas in nature, it happens organically. But as humans, we get to choose. But one of the things that is required for evolution to happen is entropy, or chaos, or dissolution of what's not working. And so when we step into more and more of being in alignment with what you're really here to do, you will likely find that there's some of that entropy, some falling away of things that don't fit the new paradigm.
Yeah. In fact, I'm really glad you said that. It frames something in my mind that made me realize I need to let go of something in my life. And I'd say I've been 100% committed to getting this done, but there's still been a piece of the puzzle that is a significant portion, and that's been my photography background. And it's not that I don't resonate with it or I'm not passionate about it anymore, but this really, you know, like when I get to work with clients now, I mean, it really fulfills me and makes me happy that I know I'm making a difference in someone's life. And sometimes it feels a little like even some of the pieces of the puzzle as a coach, you can, you know, understand like, wow, that seems like the next obvious step. But when someone says that's huge for me, it's like really gratifying, and it's more gratifying than my photography background. And the moment you just shared made me realize I guess I have to divorce myself from some of my equipment and kind of let some of all of that go and just kind of push forward. I can't let all of it go because or okay.
Before you throw out the baby with the bathwater here, Bradley, maybe there's a way for you to weave that into your coaching.
Yeah, there is that possibility. Some of the stuff I could let go just because I want to be more minimalistic. But I think there is that is a good way to frame it. And I think maybe I've been holding on to it for that type of reason. But there's some of the stuff that you know I can just sell it and I can go have a good trip with the money I make or whatever. You know.
Got it.
But I think I need to just take that step and start open that up. And that will probably be the sign to the universe that says, you know, okay, ready for more stuff to come in. Letting some of this other stuff go.
So if it feels like it's weighing you down, or
Yeah,
hold you
yeah,
back,
yep. It does a
then
little
there's
bit.
there's your energetic sign.
Yeah,
But
and
if it feels like I miss it, or how come I haven't done that for a while, then
mhm.
maybe there's a place to bring it back in and use it
Yeah,
in service of your clients.
yep.
Just a question for you.
Yeah, yeah, no, 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 yeah. And I like how this has kind of evolved and flipped, and now turned me into the client as a host. But I think there is that, and I will take some time to, um, look at all the, I've got a whole pile of stuff for photography, basically a whole studio, and a lot of it I can get rid of because I won't be able to travel with it. Because that's my big thing. Obviously, you can see from my background is that I want to travel a lot more and inspire people while I'm traveling and integrate photography into that somehow. How exactly yet? Not sure, but I'll figure it out and get there. So, but a lot of the equipment I can let go, and
Yeah.
I won't take it with me. So.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it's really
I'd
cool.
love to chime in there too. As my business has grown and evolved, and it's flourishing now, going through this divorce has put me in a position of, wow, it's been years since I've really thought about what do I really want? What do I want my living environment to be like? What are my values? Because when you're in partnership, you have to cooperate and there's
Yep.
compromise along the way. And so I love what you're sharing, that you're not interested in acquisition of stuff, you're interested in traveling. Likewise, I want to build a tiny little house. Right now I'm living in 6,000 square foot humongo house, and I want to build one of those tiny ones on wheels.
Oh
And
yeah, those are so cool.
yeah, they're really cute.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the lifestyle that I want, because then I can live in harmony with my values. And it again, we're talking about purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose isn't just the career that you have, it's living on purpose as well. So what are my values that I really want to live into? And my values are not acquisition of stuff. I value beauty, but I would much rather have the freedom to travel as well, or um, to tithe much more generously, those kinds of things. So it's not just about looking for the career or the job or the business. It's
Yeah.
how is the rest of your life coming into alignment with your purpose.
How can you do it all the time in everything that you do?
Exactly.
And it's not, yeah, like you said, it's not in that frame of business. Like you gotta always be networking and always be closing. It's just how do you be, how do you just be yourself all the time? And for myself, how is it that I can help people all the time, and be traveling and doing my photography and things like that. So, well, we're kind of winding down here. This went longer than I had anticipated. So, I want to make sure that the audience has a way to connect with you. But before we kind of jump into that, if you had like one last final piece of advice on helping find your purpose, what would that be? $5 million question.
It's the simplest one. It's like, what makes your heart sing?
Yeah.
When you think about it, what makes you feel joyful and interested in waking up in the morning, regardless of the money you think it's going to create or won't create? It's like that's where your soul work needs to come through, is
Yeah.
in that. And when people say, I don't know what it is, I think that's nothing more than an internal dialogue that needs to just get busted, because we do have a sense inside of what we love to do and what we're here to do when we give ourselves permission to dream.
Yeah. I like it. So as now we're kind of closing out. Where can people connect with you if they've resonated? And in during that, describe the perfect type of person you love working with too. So if they resonate.
Yeah, thank you. I love working with spiritually minded women entrepreneurs who are bringing their own their own unique gift and talent to the world, as opposed to a product or a network marketing thing. They're bringing their own talent, whether it's coaching or intuition or artistry of some sort, to the world. Um, and they're women who have that sense of, I'm meant to do work that is beyond my local community. So they've got a bigger mission where they're supposed to be. They know it, they feel it, they sense it. They're supposed to be out in a bigger arena. So those are the women that I love to work with. And the way people can access more of me or resources and tools, definitely visit my website, www.dinahsnow.com, and it's spelled DINAHSNOW.com. And if people want to have a private conversation with me and just explore this whole, you do your purpose work with your people, I use numerology. If they want to talk with me about how they package up their services or price themselves, they can go to dinahsnow.com/sign up. And that's where they can have a private conversation with me. And there's other stuff on my website they can go find. There's quizzes and things like that.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. I think this has been really informative and real, and I didn't expect to have some work for me to work out some issues on my side, but I'm thankful for you helping me do that just by telling your story. And I think that's another point of, like, once you're working on your purpose, you don't have to do anything but really just be yourself, and you're going to help people become better, or whatever it is. And you were just telling your story, and it clarified something for me. So thank you very much and I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and you have yourself a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bradley.